Thank you for staying with Benchmark. In our final segment today, we analyze public sentiment about the upcoming budget as expressed in TNS Lanka's latest survey, with the majority of respondents favouring tax cuts and reforms while also calling for measures to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Here's Anushan Selvaraja with more.
Welcome to the Voice of Business. Joining me on the show this week is Kunal Sharma, Country Manager for TNS Lanka, with the latest on their island-wide survey. Now, Kunal, the latest nationwide survey reveals that 84% of respondents feel that more tax cuts and reforms should be the cornerstones of the upcoming budget. Could you elaborate on what they have said and also tell us the areas that have been noted as being in need of reforms or cuts, so to speak?
Sure. Well, as far as the tax cuts part is concerned, I think people are referring more to the rising prices. So they are looking at measures to control the inflation, measures to control the increase in price of household goods, both essential and non-essential. And that's where they would like the government to take certain steps from the budgetary perspective. The reforms, however, is somewhat different. The reforms parts is a bit more broad agenda. It's about increasing the standard of living of people in the country in general, and also investing in infrastructure development. So in a way, it's heartening to see that while there is something that people want for themselves, they also have the larger picture in mind.
Now, a large percentage, 85% actually, feel that there should be measures in place to narrow the gap between the rich and the poor. Now, as we all know, Kunal, the less fortunate in our society need a helping hand to improve their way of life. Do respondents have any idea on how this can be achieved, or else what do you think we as a nation can do about this national shame? Will the budget address this, do you think?
Well, you know, it was a famous French philosopher who said that if you take all the wealth in the world and put it in one place and then distribute it equally among all the citizens of the world, within a day, the first disparity will appear. Within a year, things will be pretty much back to normal, which is to say that 80% of the world's wealth would reside in 20% of the people's hand. So in one way or the other, social and economic disparities are here to stay. Having said that, I think it behooves the government through its policy and through budgets to take steps to address this gap to the extent that it can. Disparities will remain, but the idea is to make sure that those disparities are not so much as to cause social friction. To that extent, activities of investment into infrastructure, national development activities, development of roadways, development of railway tracks, creating employment opportunities in far-off regions, all those steps really do contribute. However, as far as the respondents of the survey are concerned, I don't think they really have gone down to the level of thinking what steps the government needs to take. It's just an ideal that they are trying to talk about.
85% of your sample population say that Budget 2012 should bring price reductions for essential goods. Now, is this realistic, do you think, given the state of the world?
Well, let's look across the world what is happening. If you look at Europe, they are going through now the second and rather a long-drawn and severe economic recession in recent times. US, while it is not as bad, still doesn't show signs of complete return to normalcy. Except for a few countries in Asia, I think the rest of it is all doom and gloom, if I might put it that way. Given that, price reduction might really be just wishful thinking on the part of the public. However, at the same time, there is something that the government can do through the budget, which is at least to keep the price inflation under check, make sure that some of the commodity prices are not, do not run away unchecked, and with focus on production processes, increase productivity and efficiency in both supply and distribution, I think that can be something that can be still managed.
The transport sector is cited by a majority of respondents as being in need of an overhaul, and indeed one would expect there to be some measures in the budget to address this. What do you think are the key focus areas as far as the transport sector goes?
Well, for the transport sector, I can think of quite a few. To start with, as far as the cities are concerned, and the connectivity between the cities is concerned, we still rely a lot on buses. Although it would appear that the infrastructure of buses is not enough, because you still see a huge lot of vans being used for transportation between cities and within the cities as well. So obviously it points down to the shortfalls of the public transportation system so far. Introduction of newer, more fuel efficient and more comfortable public transportation would obviously help and go a long way. Talking about the entire nation as such, there is some work afoot already in terms of developing or relaying the tracks for railways, but I think that objective will be achieved only once we have railway network across the country which connects at least all the major destinations in the country, no matter which province we are talking about. So that is another important thing. The third thing that we really need to look at is within the larger cities. For example, Colombo, of course, might need something over and above that. Maybe not immediately, because we still are not looking at the kind of population density that some of our neighboring countries have in their major cities. But yet, let's not forget that the narrow streets of Colombo are a precursor to disaster in that direction. As and when the city population reaches a certain critical point, traffic jams all the time will become the order of the day. And before that happens, a mass transportation system within the city like a metro or an underground would definitely be required. On a personal note, I would really be happy if the government put speed governors in some of the buses, because those guys, you know what happens when you drive on the road, and I am sure I speak for all the people on the roads that we will all feel safer if that is something that the government would do.
That was Kunal Sharma in conversation with Anushan Selvaraja. And before we close our program today, a brief look at an issue that continues to worry many Sri Lankans. A topic that we've covered extensively in our Spotlight segment over the last few months, and one that is often cited by business people as one of the most pressing national issues for the nation today. Yes, we're talking about corruption and its deadly grip on Sri Lanka. If you would like to express your opinion on the subject, log on to LMD's website, lmd.lk, and tell us how you feel. We hope you enjoyed our show. To join us again next week at the same time.